He's become one of my favorites. Love talking to Jamal Crawford, Turner Sports NBA analyst, won the Sixth Man of the Year 3 times. Marvin says, hey, you see this picture? Jamal is working out with Victor Wembanyama. I go, okay. Let's get Jamal on and find out how this happened. So Jamal Crawford joining us on the program. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. How did this happen with you and Victor working out together?
Well, we go back to earlier this season when we had him on the show. And I asked him, because he'd been doing some crazy moves. So I asked him about, if he could do this particular move. And he's like, yeah, I've been doing that for years. I'm like, yeah, okay. And then we hook up at All-Star, and I just show him some freestyle moves. And from there, our relationship kind of took off.
Wait, what did you show him?
Well, I showed him, a wraparound move where he wraps around his body. It's only reserved for tall guards, Dan. Guys with long arms that can pull this off. And I thought he could take us to the next level. But it was funny when I started showing him, all the other rookie sophomores on the court, all the attention, they stopped shooting and just went over there. I'm like, okay, let's just keep this surface level because everybody's watching right
now. I kept maintaining during the season he needed a point guard to put him in positions. Like it felt like in the first half of the season, he'd get lost out there. He'd be out of position. He'd get bodied out of position. But can the Spurs get that point guard to help him? Because that feels like that's the next step in his evolution.
They absolutely can. And I can see why it would take a little bit because he's such a unique talent and you can use him so many different places on the court, right? Like you can use him bringing up the ball. You can use him in the mid-post area. You can use him in the post area. He can shoot transition threes and do everything in between. So I understand popping those guys' thinking because you just don't know exactly what you have until you have it. And even then, he can kind of stretch the imagination. But you're right, getting that point guard to kind of grow with him and that fits him would definitely serve them well.
If you were advising Luka after what you saw in the finals, what would you say to him about the offseason and his approach to next season, if anything?
I would think for Luka, he's such a savant of the basketball. Like I was telling somebody, he's been a pro since he was 15. So at 20, he's kind of mastered how the game works. He's mastered playing against different styles, whether it's physicality, whether it's quicker guys, whatever it might be. But I think for him, getting in the ultimate shape would help tremendously. And then I also think the more you give up the ball, I know coming from me, this sounds crazy, but the more you give up the ball, the easier it is to actually score without using less energy and kind of conserving energy. And that's what you do at different times. I think he grew in that area with Kyrie and letting Kyrie take the lead at times. I think there's another level of growth to actually win the championship.
But you're never going to have officials give you the benefit of the doubt if you're constantly complaining to them.
No, and he's too good to let that bother him or let anybody bother him. Like, I've joked before, I'm like, this guy plays when he's playing against the best defenses. He's playing like he has headphones on, Dan. He does not get bothered by anybody. So don't let these guys bother you because you're too good for that.
The Celtics answered all the questions now. Now we move on. Jason Tatum, he got his title. Now we move on to Joel Embiid or Luka as the next player who needs to win a title?
Absolutely.
Anybody else?
Let me think. Joel Embiid, Luka. Joker already has his. I think those are the two on deck.
Giannis has his.
Giannis has his. I think those two are definitely on deck, and I think they're going to prepare and do anything. But let me just say this about Tatum, because I tweeted this. They were up 2-0 then, and he wasn't shooting well. He wasn't having his normal scoring outburst, but he had just averaging 10 rebounds or 8 rebounds, 10 assists at the time, or vice versa. He was doing well. He was playing an all-around game. He just wasn't making shots. And people were like, what is he doing? I'm like, if you were down 0-2, I could understand, kind of jumping on him, but they're up 2-0. And we criticized him for not doing other things when he wasn't just scoring. Now he's doing that. And they found a way to win, so I'm happy for them, happy for the Celtics. They deserve it.
Well, I thought he should have been MVP. It felt like he just had Jason Tatum numbers where Jaylen Brown was a little better with his numbers than what we expect. Therefore, it felt like he was more valuable. But, it still comes down to you got to stop Tatum. And even when you stop him, he can still beat you or help his teammates in other ways.
And look at all he's accomplished at 26 years old. First team All-NBA a few times, All-Star. He'll be an Olympian this summer. Like, all those things that go All-Star MVP, like all those things that go into it, I think now in its totality, I thought him or Luka were going to look at their whole careers a little bit differently. I think moving forward for him, I think that changed a lot. But I'm just glad that Boston actually kept those two together. Remember a few years back, everybody was like, break them up. Like, no, those two need each other. And now they're kind of set up in a way, especially in the East, where they can have a run for a while.
We're talking to Jamal Crawford, the Turner Sports NBA analyst. The series about the Clippers when you were there with Donald Sterling. It's called Clipped. What's it like to watch a show where somebody is portraying you in the show?
It's fascinating because I looked at him, I said, that's not me. But it was crazy because the hair was totally different. He had a long sleeve shirt. I'm like, I don't think that's me. But just to be on the show, you remember different like things. I remember Sterling walking into the locker room. I remember that day. It only happened one time in the 5 years I was there. And no, he didn't get kicked out, but he came in with 10 different people and he was singing Hip Hip Hooray, like we had won a championship. It was a regular season game, so that part was a little different. But it's been hilarious to watch. The characters, they could have did a little bit better casting because that Chris Paul is not even Cliff Ball didn't look like that in State Farm, Dan. He put on some pants. I don't know who that was.
It's Cliff Paul, not Chris Paul, I think, that they were portraying there.
Right.
Plus, they had to find an actor who could only shoot and not pass to portray you, and that was hard to do as well. They needed to, to find a gunner.
They needed a gunner. They needed a gunslinger.
Yeah.
A fierce gunslinger.
But, okay, that's a chaotic time. At least it feels like that. Did you guys realize what was going on, like how chaotic this was from the outside looking in at the Clippers?
To be honest with you, he was never around. Like, he would come to games, but we never actually had interactions with him. So the most chaotic stuff was when after game 3, we're in San Francisco and all the tapes came out. And even then, when the tapes came out, what we were told was all the owner said some things. And we're like, oh, he's a little different anyway. We're sure he said. And then when we heard the tapes, we had to have another meeting after film session and then really talk about how we're going to move and navigate going forward. And that part is true. And that in Clip, that some of us were like, no, we're not comfortable playing. And then others were like, well, let's talk through this thing. And it was a 2 or 3 hour meeting to kind of get everybody on the same page. And even then, it still didn't feel completely right.
I had Lawrence Fishburne on a couple of weeks ago, the great actor portraying Doc Rivers. Yeah. And I said, what did you know about Doc Rivers? He goes, nothing. He didn't even know who Doc Rivers was.
Think about that. Think about that. And I saw that clip and I was crying, laughing. I'm like, he knew nothing about Doc Rivers, but to his credit, he's nailed every mannerism. Like, even when Doc got mad and yelled, everything was to a T.
Are the Celtics a great team historically? Like, is this season, are they going to be remembered for pick out whatever Bulls team or Celtic team or Laker team? Are they in that category for this season alone?
Not sure yet. And maybe with how things are looked at now, things happen fast. There's always a news cycle going on. I'm not sure they're looked at as an all-time great team. Last night, it was weird. I was watching Kevin Durant, his first run in the finals with Golden State. They were 16-1. He averaged 35, 5, and like 5. Like, that was like some otherworldly stuff. And they were playing against a healthy Cavs team at the time, and LeBron, and like that felt like an all-time playoff finals run. I'm not sure this team feels like that, even though they check the boxes with the numbers and some of the eye tests.
Yeah, you're right. They're not better than Golden State. They're not better than the 86 Celtics or throw in Magic's Lakers or Mike's Bulls. Yeah, I certainly understand that. Speaking of the what?
What do you have? What do you have in them all time? Like right in that conversation.
I don't think they're an all-time great single-season team. But I think what's not fair to them is they didn't go through any great teams. I didn't think Dallas was a great team. I think Boston built a great team. And that's a team that would be able to compete against any of these teams because of their versatility and they have depth there. But I'd have a hard time lumping them in as a top 10 great team of all time individually. Monty Williams got fired this morning. So he's with the Pistons. Is there any chance the Lakers would be interested in Monty Williams, or is this a foregone conclusion? Would you at least reach out? If you're the Lakers, would you rather have Monty Williams or would you rather have J.J. Redick? If I make you Rob Pelinka right now.
Right now, that's a good question because Monty's had, obviously, successes. He helped take Phoenix to the finals, but then you see what happens in Detroit. It was a younger team. I think Monty is built more for vet teams, so I could see that. But there's something about JJ that's exciting. And I think that's why so many people it's fascinating. First time coach, he's only coached his kids like I have, but he's a brilliant basketball mind. He loves the game. He can make adjustments. Whoever is the coach, I feel like is going to have to be on board, like lock and key with LeBron and AD. And I'm not saying anybody hasn't been, but just know that going forward, because at this point, LeBron's, the end is closer than the beginning. I think everything has to be tailored to what AD wants to do, because he's the present and the future, and LeBron's the present right now, right? So he has to be lock and key with whoever's the coach.
What if AD says, I don't want us to draft Bronny?
He's not.
I know that.
He's not saying that. Yeah.
I know. I'm just saying, if it's his team, be like, why are we wasting a second-round pick on Bronny?
But what's interesting about AD, even when it's his team, is he would be okay if they got like a third star, and he was like not necessarily the focal point of the offense, because he's so unselfish and he can do so many different things. People forget at Kentucky, he was more known for his defense. So he's comfortable doing other things. So, no, if Bronny's on the board, I have a feeling Bronny would be in LA.
Yeah, I agree. Who's a better shooter, you or Redick?
I think spot shooting, I think he is. I think off the dribble, I think it's me. So I think both are needed.
So if you went one-on-one.
Ooh, I may have the advantage then. I might. But Redick has a better one-on-one game than people would think. Like, he can get to his stuff. He has a little right to left crossover pull-up. But one-on-one shooting, I think I would.
Wait, did you just call him sneaky athletic is what you did right there, Jamal?
No, I didn't say sneaky. I said sneaky handles. Sneaky handles, DP.
Could you beat Jordan right now, Michael Jordan, in a game of one-on-one?
Yeah, right now, the second, he's 60 plus. I can get him right now, but that's the only time I can ever get him. Dan, at 39 or 40 years old, when he was my age, equivalent to my age, he wasn't playing at 44, but he's in his 40s.
Yeah.
He was still like dominating prime all-stars. He was dominating against the Antoine Walkers and the Mike Finleys, and he was like, he averaged, I think, 25 and 5 until he had that knee injury with the Wizards. We can look that up.
Yeah.
He was him and Kobe, the only two at that time. Unbelievable.
But you could take him at 60.
If me right now at 60, I might be able to get him. The one and only time. But even then, we know him. He's still a threat. Give him a month.
He doesn't. I'm sure he'd hear this and he'd be like, "All right, give me a couple of weeks. I'd get ready."
If he has some weeks, I'm changing my answer. Right now, it's Nick Cole.
I don't know the next time we'll talk to you, but I want to thank you for being available during the season. You've come a long way. You've done a great job, and I hope I know you have a bright future. I hope you get opportunities down the road here.
You're a legend. I'm always honored to be on. Thank you.
That's Jamal Crawford. He played 20 seasons, Sixth Man of the Year 3 times. Got good stories. He's fun. Got an opinion. Pinned him down on would you rather take Monty Williams or J.J. Redick? And he said he kind of said he would rather take J.J. Redick. Although Monty's good with veteran teams. Well, that's what you have with the Lakers there.